and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I am your co host, Michelle, and today we have special guest Lee Smart with us. Thanks for being here, Lee.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm excited about today. I'm so excited. I almost forgot to set an intention, but we set an intention at the beginning of every podcast. Do you want to set an intention or should I do it?
Oh, how about we just take turns? You take the lead and I'll follow up with mine.
All right. My intention is a little bit comical to me because of the way I sound, but my intention is to honor my physical body. I'm going to honor my physical body today so that I can show up in the best way possible. I don't want it to be a distraction to our engagement of conversation today.
Cool. Okay. So my intent is just to come at this with an open mind, play and have fun.
Beautiful. You're my kind of human. I'm all about playing and having fun, even when we talk about tough stuff, which I suspect might be where we go today.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit about before when I asked you if you wanted to engage and be on the podcast, we were talking a little bit about like, because we never have a hard time finding conversation, but we're like, how can we best show up and show up in a way that might be most beneficial for the audience? And I think where we landed is let's play with coaching each other. We're both coaches
hmm
and we have conversations and we're friends, but we don't like coach each other in real life. So let's dance that dance a little.
Let's do it. So you want me to take the lead and be the coach and let's see where it ends up?
Yeah, let's see where we land. I'm in.
Cool. All right. So I mean, this morning I went and I gave a presentation for my daughter's school, and it was a career day. So, what is it that we do as coaches? And so I led off with I help people create the future that they want to see.
Mm,
Uh, and I used a really cool analogy is therapy. I'm a lot like a therapist, except for a therapist is going to help you patch a hole in your boat so you can then go out on the water. A coach is going to help you navigate the water when you're out there.
mm.
Like, let's set that destination. Let's set that journey that we want. So where do we want to end up? Because if we don't set that path forward, then we just have to deal with whatever consequences show up whenever the tide takes us to where we end up. Okay.
Love it.
So you explained it to second, third graders and managed to create some clarity that is harder to come to without that. So let's dig in. Tell me, what are your hopes and dreams?
Ooh, my hopes and dreams. I have a lot of them in different areas right now, but one that I'm thinking about at the forefront, partially because Dan is looking a lot at sailboats these days, and eventually we want to land on one for a little while for a chunk of our time in life. Um, and that has me thinking like I want to be strong and capable to be on a flippin' sailboat. Like the older I get, the more I'm like, my right knee is bugging me. I lost my voice. So it's like I want to maintain physical strength so that I can enjoy. I don't want to call it retirement because it's not gonna be retirement. That's just not how we roll. But I want to enjoy things like exploring different, I was gonna say lands, that sounds so big, but just different terrain. And some of that terrain is on the water at an angle on a sailboat. That's the one that's at the forefront of my mind these days because he's looking at the stuff. I know it's not happening soon, but in my head, I'm thinking, I really got to get my shit together and get myself strong. And then in my being, I go, I'm busy. That's always last on my list. And I don't super know why.
So I'm hearing a few things as you say those things. One is physical resilience,
Hmm.
like very much so value the physical presence so that we can go out there and have these adventures and do the things that you crave to do in life without physical limitations.
Yeah.
Um, let's see, what else did I pick up in there? So I'm really trying to dig into like what values you just talked about,
Mm.
and adventure was a huge part of it. And that to me leads me to believe that for you it's about creating memories and experiences.
100%. It's funny
What's important about,
when you say adventure,
yeah.
people say I'm an adventure taker or a risk taker, and I don't identify. I'm just like, what is adventurous about that? Because there's so many things that I wouldn't do. But but yes, creating memories for sure. Because one of my time is one of my biggest things, and I like quality time is like one of the most important things to me. So whether it be with my partner or my kids or people I love and care about, I want to be able to do things where we get to create experiences. I don't even know I would say memories. Like I want to be in the now. And then,
Mhm.
well, there's always fun stories, but for me, the fun stories are ridiculous, dumb shit that happens that you have to like overcome because, your luggage got lost or the AC broke in the thing and it was 105 or whatever, like those are the fun, quote unquote, memories for me because they were like struggles in the moment. And then we laughed about it together and navigated it together and got through it. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny because it's like when Dan and I talk, sometimes I'm like, I hate people. They piss me off. But then I'm like, I like people. I like the people I like. I like the people I care about. I like the people that, now that I have boundaries, right? Excuse me. I like the people that, we have reciprocity and mutual love and care and kindness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I picked up. There's so much there. It's like in the question of journey versus destination. A lot of it's about the company.
Yeah.
A lot of it's about overcoming obstacles and taking on bigger challenges and growing as a person. So there's some growth value there too. I'm curious though, as you start to really think about creating these experiences, what kind of stories do you want to tell your grandkids?
Hmm. I mean, honestly, I don't have an attachment to the kind other than just the accuracy of whatever we did. I don't want to not have stories to tell, I guess. Like I'm not a humdrum, what, boring. I like to do stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm getting a vision of like the opposite. Hey, how's your life going? Well, I'm making it. It's a struggle, but we're making it. Like it's completely opposite of that. And I know I went out there and I did big things. I did things that are worth telling stories about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like I'm a work hard, play hard kind of person, but even working hard can be fun.
Hmm.
Like if it sucks the life out of me, I'm not interested.
Hmm.
Uh, but that took some work. I don't know that I started there. I certainly didn't start brave or courageous in trying the hard things and being willing to fail. I grew up thinking I couldn't fail. But that's been work and now it's like, yeah, no, let's dance. Let's see what happens. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? I have a story that's pretty funny and a little humiliating, but I'm okay with that.
Those are the best stories,
Those
though,
are
right?
the best stories. There are so many. And that's why I love travel, which is why the sailboat thing is super exciting to me. And to be fair, it like definitely it's that perfectionist piece comes in for me, full disclosure, right? Because like I'm just learning how to sail. Dan's already knows. Um, and I want to be able to show up in a way that is supportive and engaged, and I'm doing my share. I don't want to just be like, okay, babe, you're taking us. Where are you taking us? Like, no, no. I want to be a part of the crew and help. And um, but that's not like the little bit of sailing that I have taken, super not intuitive for me, super not easy for me. I need reps, I need practice, I need to and if I'm going to put myself in the scariest place for me to which is dumb because he's not that way. But like I don't want to do it in front of Dan. I want to learn it first and then go there. Like there's a piece of me and I'm like, "Oh, that's an old pattern. I know where that's from." Uh so like we're gonna get out of that story. But I have already been on a sailboat with him and I have moments where I'm like, hang on, I just need a minute. I just need a minute to myself because I'm in an old thing in a trigger and I just need you to give me a hot second and then I'll be fine. And he honors that and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I have something brewing back here. I'm trying to clarify it in my own brain real quick before I throw it out there. It's what do you think for you is the real challenge in like we just talked about was the greatest stories are whenever we go through the suck and then come out of it the other side, right?
Yeah.
So what does it look like for you to go through that suck and actually enjoy it while you're there rather than afterwards?
I mean, I don't think I used to enjoy it. And I think Dan was a big piece of shifting that for me and just doing my own work. I mean, I think finding self love was huge because I used to think if I didn't show up and do things well, then I would beat myself up. I don't have that anymore, but honestly, I'm a humor person. I love finding things funny and I have a dark sense of humor. So now that I can like include myself in that, it's amazing. And like I think about sometimes some of the stories that we tell from trips and things that old me, I say old me, but like old me would have felt um like I was being made fun of or like I don't know, like I did something wrong or like I was a jerk. And now I'm just like, oh no, like this was the reality and this is what happened. And that is freaking hysterical. And I'm good with laughing about it. So, in some ways, I appreciate and celebrate the work that I've done, knowing that I still have triggers, I still have things to work through, and I still like there's always more work to do. But when it comes to travel, it really is my happy place. So, even if it sucks in the moment, I'm I know that going forward, it will be a story that we tell and we giggle about, and there's even lessons to be learned within it, right? And there is something about getting through this suck where I'm like, damn, I'm stronger than I thought. I can do more than I gave myself credit for. Hmm. Where else am I doing that? I need somebody to call me on my shit, you know?
What does it look like for you to interrupt that pattern, that oh, the old triggers, the old patterns and everything? So you're in the suck and you end up on that downward spiral where it's just like, I don't know what it looks like for you, but for me, it was like bitch, bitch, moan, moan. Oh, poor pity me. So what does it look like for you to interrupt that pattern and come out of it?
Yeah, I recognize my old stories pretty quickly, but that's been a muscle I've exercised for the past 12, 13 years. Well, I probably started even before then, maybe 20 years ago, right? But to
Hmm.
really, I don't feel like I got good at catching myself in those patterns and in those triggers, maybe in the last 5 to 10 at the most years, probably 5, where I really was like, oh, well, that's bullshit. And you know that's bullshit. So stop telling yourself that. Um, but I still have moments where like I can know I'm in a trigger, but I still need to allow myself to be there. Like I still need to feel that old story in some way and honor it and understand that it's temporary and that it's not even true, but there's still a piece of me that is living there in some way and I need to or I get to allow myself to be in it for a hot second. But also I've gotten really good at I think my way out of it, which was your question, and I'm processing it as I'm speaking, right? Like what is my way out? I think is for me to really drop into the present moment and recognize that like at 54 years old, I have learned a lot, I've overcome a lot, I've experienced a lot, and I now allow myself to feel versus stuff, and I don't want to go back to being the person with the brick walls around her heart, you know? And so I get to remind myself that like this work that I've done, well, it doesn't mean that I'm never going to feel those feelings again, but it does mean that I get to own and celebrate that like I've learned some shit and I've done some things and I can be proud of that. Like I actually get to be proud of who I am and how I show up in the world. And that doesn't mean that I'm always going to show up great. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to show up as my 27-year-old wounded self, right? Or my 14-year-old wounded self or my 8-year-old wounded self, whichever one. Um, there's many more. But I get to love them too. But with the new wisdom, like with the new, like my heart is different now. I do love myself. I do trust myself. And that, like that changed everything. And I still get freaking stuck. But I know I'm stuck and that's the difference, right? Like I can be like, all right, I'm going to acknowledge this. I'm going to be honest about it. I'm going to have an awareness and I might still choose to avoid it for just a hot second. But the awareness and the permission to do so changes it significantly.
Yeah. So okay. So the huge part of what you're talking about is the number one principle when it comes to coaching people, and it's building awareness. It's the
Yeah.
first thing we do is build awareness because so many of us run based on the old stories, the old patterns, and we've accepted those stories as true,
Yeah.
right? And then and we just run on autopilot. So the hugest part of it is just building that awareness and um being able to drop into the moment and know whenever you end up in those patterns
Yeah.
and that downwards spiral too. Um, so whenever you start to talk about the big dream is creating the experiences and traveling and doing all those things, are there any challenges that pop up for you?
Yeah, I think I always have a default, maybe is a good way to put it. There's a default pocket where I have like I look at the things that might scare the crap out of me, right? And then it's like, yeah, okay. You know, I just have a different relationship to that now. And some of it for me is like, yeah, I'm terrified of heights. So there's just like I have zero desire to ever go skydiving. I don't care what location in the world I'm in. That's I'm out, you know. Um, and I get to claim that for myself. Am I
Mhm.
open to it possibly changing someday? Sure. What do I think the likelihood of, I feel like there's a lot of stepping stones that happen before I actually go there. And quite frankly, it's just not a desire or a goal of mine. And I think that's also all right. But Dan likes to mess with me about height stuff. Well, we're gonna go ziplining wherever. Or what if we cliff dive or what, and I'm just like, have fun. That doesn't sound fun to me. Like you can do it. I don't have to. Um, but I suspect there might come a day where there's going to be something where we're somewhere where I decide that I'm going to like face that fear and do something that terrifies me with regard to heights, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't hang on that stuff a lot. I mean, travel is literally a trump card for me. It
Mhm.
legit is my happy place. So it's hard for me to think about, I don't know. I'm not like setting up the universe to like mess with my trips, but like it's hard for me to think about something where that would just destroy a trip for me. Because even the most challenging situations, like we talked about, they're funny eventually. They might not be funny in the moment. Um, but it's just joyful. So there's something about being in a different place where they live differently. And you get to explore that and learn from their culture, their traditions, how they show up, what their vibe is. And I get to slow down on some level when I travel, which isn't how I used to travel, by the way. I used to be like, ooh, I'm in this place. I'm never going to get there again. This is what I told myself. So I need to see all the things I can possibly see. I need to squeeze it out. And now I'm like, no, no, let's drop in. Let's become part of the culture. Let's make this home for a much longer period of time. If I stay in one city for 2.5 weeks, I'm gonna learn a heck of a lot about that city. I might make new friends in that place, and I get to really understand and see how they live. And that's an amazing, incredible thing. I don't want to live in a little box. I mean, I was born and raised in Minnesota. I've never lived anywhere else, but I visited a lot of places
Yeah.
and I
I
love
just
it.
got like an image of you traveling the highway. Like early on, it was destination only, no room for anything else, and anything that moved you outside of going directly for that destination in this set time would alter your own personal well-being. It's
Do you
like,
know what's so funny about that? Go ahead, finish.
yeah, no, go ahead and say what you need to say.
You literally just described my childhood.
Uh-huh.
So when I was 11 years old, my parents bought a lot up north where all of our family was, most of our family was, and they built a cabin. Every weekend, we drove to that cabin. Every weekend on Fridays, I did not drink a lot of water or anything because I knew that on that 3.5, 4 hour drive, there was no chance that my dad was going to stop so we could go to the bathroom. because then he'd have to repass all the cars that he already passed on the way. And we were literally going from home one to cabin, home two. Right. And so, like, you literally just described every weekend from the time I was 11 until the time I didn't choose to go up every single weekend anymore. It was exactly
Mhm.
that. There were no sides. And now I'm like, oh, I just want to, like, let's stop off at Lake Mille Lacs and see the big walleye and check out the waves on that lake. And let's take a detour and go over here and check out, Brainerd and see what that's like. And so, like, now I kind of, it's not that I never make a beeline for the cabin, but I tend to find places to stop and see, a relative, stop and see a friend. I do not like the direct route without any chance of stopping.
Amazing how much magic is in those open moments like that, huh?
Yeah.
Surprise a friend, drop in on them,
Yeah.
like completely change somebody's course just by having the wherewithal to stop in and say, "Hey, I was thinking about you. I love you." So I decided to come in and see you.
Yeah.
And having the openness to be in that moment and enjoy it rather than it being uh, uh an interruption to the so
My parents are very much, let's hurry up and get there so we can hurry up and get home kind of people. Like, that's just how they rolled. That is not my preferred way to roll. I want to explore all the things.
it's kind of a survival mindset, isn't it? It's like or a scarcity mindset. It might be a better way to describe it.
Yeah,
It's
maybe. I think they were excited to see their friends and then they wanted to get home and get their shit done. I don't, I'm just like, okay. I mean, and I'm not even saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. It worked for them. But like for me, oh, I don't know. I also get bored with the same thing over and over and over again. Full disclosure, right? Like I want a little bit of variety.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I at least want the opportunity to choose something different. I don't want to be locked into one way. I want to explore all the ways. And not just, I mean, I was 11. I didn't really have a choice.
So I just caught another vision of you've got all these experience and all these pieces, and they're almost like the little individual pieces of a grand quilt. What's the grand quilt?
Mm, the grand quilt. Oh, that's so amazing. The grand quilt is funny because it's like if I put it together as like my life, right? And all the people that have been in it and out of it and the wounds, it's like it gets more and more beautiful as time goes on, right? But also like there's a lot of freaking patches in there.
Hmm.
Covering up some holes, finding some new fabrics that I left behind in places I didn't even realize I had left it, pulling that stuff forward and bringing like all bits of the life experience into it. But it's that, right? It's life experience. It's who you spend your time with, how you choose to spend your time, where you choose to spend it, how you impact others. It's not, this is, I mean, it's my life that we're describing and talking about right now, but also like it's not just about that. Like for me, like life is best shared. Um, Not to say I don't like my alone time because I definitely need that. But like helping other people see and explore their own life and manifest that in their way that feels best. Like to know that they can. That was a thing I never used to know that I could. Um, and then somewhere along the way, I just decided I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to live it for me, my way, because that's the best way I show up with other people. Otherwise, there's too much pain and wounds and inauthenticity, and it's not aligned. It doesn't feel congruent. And there's so much more energy. I lived my life wasting so much freaking energy trying
Hmm.
to cover the pain or fit into boxes or to even not be seen, which is the most ridiculous thing. But hindsight, like, right, when you look at that, it's like tried so hard to hide, but all I really wanted was to be seen. You know? What the
That's
hell? Like, what the fuck?
just reminded me of like early on, whenever me personally, I would have a fight or whatever with my wife, and I would go sulk in the room, and I wanted that attention. And she would come in and say, "What do you need?" Nothing. Mm. But really, I just want her to be there and to hold me and everything. But I would push her away, right? That's freaking crazy that you say that. But I think the big piece about what I heard about what you talked about was leading by example.
Mm,
It's like
yeah.
how do you change other people? You go preach and pontificate, or do you lead a life so amazing that people go, "Holy crap, what do you have going on? How do I get some?"
Yeah, and I think the first step of that is I'm not trying to change anybody, but damn it if I don't love to inspire people and empower them. You know what I mean? It's like they get to choose it. I don't care if they change or don't change. That's not my thing. It's their thing. And And if you can inspire someone to not slam that door in people's faces and actually ask for what they need and find what they freaking want in any given moment, and then to have the courage to like show up and do that, oh my God. Because it's such a painful, sucky life. I mean, I used to live that way. So I know what that feels like. And you know what? Oh, I hated it. I hated it. Yet I don't know if you ever experienced this. This is really cool because I'm reflecting on things I haven't thought about in a really long time. So thank you for that piece. Because I also haven't really thought about like the forward thinking. I've been a lot in the moment these days, which is good, but also like, God, you got to let yourself explore and play and think about the then and now and that and then beyond. Um, I just totally lost my train of thought. I was thinking about being stuck and thinking about how painful that was and thinking about how much I hid. Where was I going with that? Hmm. It's funny that it went away. I'm like, what does that mean? What am I hiding? Right? Just about, you had to do with you slamming the door and not allowing like what you need. Oh, I know what it was. So I was so miserable and so pained and so like I didn't get why I was so angry and pissed off. And that was probably three-quarters of my being, is how, if I were to look back and say how it felt, three-quarters of me was that. But there was like a quarter of me that went, I know that I'm a happy-go-lucky human on the inside. I know that like I like to have fun. I love people. I love myself. I love life. I love a lot of shit. I'm not ready to give up. I don't want to hang my hat up and say, fuck this, I'm out. I don't want to do any of that stuff, but it's so miserable in the now. And yet I know there's something in me that wants to be uncovered, but I don't know how to get to her. Like that was much of my life all the way through, for sure, junior high, maybe high school. And quite frankly, I don't feel like I started really changing into like me until my first divorce. I was like in my 30s, you know? I so didn't know who I was. Oh, and I didn't know the wounds that I had on some
Yeah.
of them because they were just super stuffed, like literally like locked in my brain, didn't remember them. I don't know. It's cool to think about. It's cool. This is going to be weird to say, but it's like cool to think about like how shitty I felt like my life. And I had a great life. Like on the outside looking in, everyone's like, oh, you have great, you know, and I did, but internally I was fucking miserable. And so to think back of like how miserable I used to be, but how I always knew that that joy was there. Like I always knew she existed in me. I just didn't know how to get to her. And then to think about like now, like I don't even relate to some of the ways that I showed up. Like I didn't have courage. I had a hell of a lot of fear and a whole lot of I can't avoidance and waiting for somebody to come rescue me, victimhood, you know? And now I'm like, oh, those are the qualities that drive me freaking crazy. Like when I feel them come up in me, I'm like, no, we don't live there anymore. You're going to take accountability. You're going to own your shit and you're going to lean in on the people that can help you. Right. Like, I love that we met because our conversations, even when we're not like actively coaching each other, they take us, well, I won't speak for you. They take me to places that I like don't necessarily think about all the time. Or they bring me to that place of like celebration and um gratitude of like, this is going to also sound weird, but I own it. Like the people of my life that have just fallen off and fallen away, like I'm glad because I wouldn't have met you or found you and the other people that have been coming in without, I didn't have time or space or even like want anymore in my life. You know, it's like I'm tapped out. I'm good. I'm like Dan says, I have more friends than I have the energy or capability to be a good friend to. Like, why am I inviting more in? Why am I not, you know? I don't know. It's cool. I'm grateful. That was my way of saying I'm grateful. And I celebrate our conversations because I love where they go.
Every time, it's always something amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's true for you, but it seems like most of the time, if I'm having conversations with people and it's about the weather or something shallow, I'm like, yeah, I don't have time for this. This is not fulfilling to me to have these shallow, meaningless conversations. If you want true connection with anybody, that needs to be a deep conversation where you push a few buttons and start to lean into places that seem a little bit uncomfortable. Because that's where deep connection's born. It's like, oh man, start to lean into those spaces. Those Elena talks about the guilty corner, the corners of shame and guilt, dusty corners of shame and guilt. That's what it is. Whatever it is, you know. Uh,
Yeah, and I don't think everybody's comfortable with the deep dive. So like as much as we say the talk about the weather and the shallow talk, it like is uncomfortable for us, the deep dives is uncomfortable for others. But I think about like I don't know, this just came in and it may or may not be accurate and I might piss some people off. I don't know. I'm not even sure how accurate it is, but I'm going to say it anyway. I feel like you know how when you're in a conversation with someone who desperately needs to keep it at the surface level, it's for me it feels like I'm witnessing them observe me from a standpoint of judgment comparison. They're looking to find a way that either we're similar in our pain points or that we can stay in the swirl of the suck. I don't know, and maybe that's not always true. I can say that's not always true, but often that's how it feels to me. And then you meet the person where you can go the deep dive and you're like, oh fuck, they're not looking at my eyes, they're looking at my goddamn soul. Like you know, where you can like it feels different. Like I know that you're a human who can hold space on a deepest level. Like I could say pretty much anything and you're not going to judge, which was a big thing from just how I felt growing up in my world, not because of necessarily the people in it, but just because of how I felt in the world. I judge myself all the time, right? So it's like it's a safe space. We're gonna see each other and call each other's on a shit. But here's the thing: when you call each other on your shit in a deep dive, that is coming from love and compassion,
yes.
and you can feel it. It's not, it's coming
Mhm.
because you love and care about the human you're speaking with. Even if you just met them, like you can feel it, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's like this, like take it or leave it. There's no attachment to how you receive it. We can have a conversation if you received it in a poorly, you know, received it poorly. And if you have more questions, we can dive deeper. If I have more
Mhm.
questions, we can dive deeper. There's just something about connection like that like that is quality time for me.
Mhm.
And quality time, I don't want to waste my time. Um,
That's where real love comes from. And I look at it like I have a principle, it's serving versus pleasing. And the best way to describe it is if I have an alcoholic come to me, I please them by giving them a drink. I serve them by withholding the drink. And to serve them may lead to some wrath and fury and some discontent and whatever those things are that they just can't deal with. I have made myself strong enough to be able to sit in their fury and their wrath and still serve them and be okay with it. It's
I
like,
use, yeah, that's amazing. I use empowering versus enabling. And when I think back to how because I was an overgiver, the number
mm-hmm,
of people that I took away their power and enabled their pain because of how I showed up in the world bothered me for a really long time. I beat myself up about that. I was like, holy shit, I was such an asshole. I'm fixing people's problems, but I'm not fixing anything. I'm enabling and perpetuating the same pattern
yes,
over and over and over again. Versus like now I'm like, all right, I'm going to call you on that avoidant bullshit behavior and
mm-hmm,
we can talk about it or not, but what I'm not going to do is enable it. I'm going to invite you to empower yourself to do the thing that gets you out of that. But I'm certainly not going to like if you're waiting for me to come in and fix it, if you're in that victimhood mindset waiting for someone else because you believe you can't, which is bullshit, you can. I'm not saying you have to do it by yourself, but I am saying you can find your way out. You're the only one who can. You might have amazing humans around you supporting that. You're the only one that can go out, you know?
yeah, yeah. You definitely have to take ownership. So we've
Yeah.
managed to devolve into discussion here rather
I
than coaching.
know. Part of me was like, I don't think we're going to end up coaching each other because I think when we talk, we do coach each other. Well, before we wrap it
Nice.
up, I would like to know, I would like you to tell people how to find you, like best way to contact you, if you have a website, all that stuff.
Oh. So you can get me on social media, Lee Aaron Smart, Facebook or LinkedIn are my two places. Best place to actually have a conversation with me, hop on my schedule, leeasmart.com.
Nice.
We have a let's talk button. You can just hop right on my schedule. I always want to make sure that whoever I work with, that we have that first conversation. We have a real coaching session 100% for free right out the gate because I want
Yeah.
to make sure one, I can serve the people that I'm working with. Two, I want to make sure we jive because coaching is built on relationships.
Yeah.
And if there's no connection, if there's no relationship, then it's not going to move forward and it's not worth it for either one of us to try and force it.
Right.
So
It's one of the
just,
reasons I love you.
yeah, easy button, hop on my schedule, leeasmart.com, and let's have that first coaching conversation and see where it goes.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks for spending time today. I appreciate it. You can find us at Hypothetically Intentional, Michelle Albers, or Jai D. It'll all be in the links of the things. So that's it for now. Bye. Be you every day.